Hello everyone. This is the next chapter, actually the fifth chapter of the book Flamingo Class 12th, Indigo. Now, this chapter, as the name suggests, has been taken from the happenings from the Indian history, modern Indian history, especially of the period uh, when the struggle for independence was going on. Now, this chapter is an extract from the book written by Louis Fisher, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. Now, this particular biography of Mahatma Gandhi is considered to be one of the most authentic biography on Mahatma Gandhi by a non-Indian. Now, this chapter is historical event about the Champaran movement, or as it is known as Indigo movement or नीलहे किसानों का आंदोलन. The chapter tells what happened. It also gives idea about the working style and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. So author says that when he first visited Gandhi in 1942 at his ashram in Sevagram in central India. Now Gandhiji had, there are various places which are associated with Gandhiji. We know Porbandar to be his birthplace, then Sabarmati ashram, and this Sevagram that is in central India, in Madhya Pradesh. He told the author that when he had decided that finally the Britishers will have to leave, and it was somewhere in 1917. In 1916, there was the annual convention of Indian National Congress in Lucknow. Around 2,300 delegates and many visitors had come over there. In that, a peasant, a farmer, a poor man came over there. He introduced himself as Raj Kumar Shukla, and he said that he was from Champaran. Now Gandhiji accepts that he had never heard of that place. It was in the foothills of Himalayas near the kingdom of Nepal. Now under some ancient arrangement, the Champaran peasants were sharecropper. Now what is sharecropping? Sharecropping is, I have the land but I don't have time to work upon it, so I go in an agreement with another person who cultivates my land, and then we share, then there is an agreement of sharing the product and everything. Now Rajkumar Shukla was one of the sharecroppers. He was illiterate but resolute, determined. He wanted to talk to the Congress leaders to complain about the injustice of the landlord system in Bihar, and most probably someone had suggested him to talk to Gandhi. Gandhiji showed his inability. He said that he had so many engagements, but Rajkumar Shukla did not lose hope. He followed Gandhi everywhere and finally followed him to the ashram in Ahmedabad, that is Sabarmati ashram. Gandhiji was very much impressed by the tenacity, that determination, and he was moved by the story. And then he promised Rajkumar Shukla that on so and so date he will be in Calcutta, and he asked him to meet him there, and once he was free he would accompany him to Bihar. Many months passed, and when Gandhi finally reached Calcutta, Rajkumar Shukla was already waiting for him. And once his work was over, both of them started for Bihar. First of all, they came to Patna. Shukla took him to the house of a famous lawyer Rajendra Prasad. We all know Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who earlier became the president of Indian National Congress and then later on he became the first president of Indian Republic. Now it so happened that Dr. Rajendra Prasad was not at home, but the servants, they knew uh, Shukla very well because he had been coming there regularly for taking up his matter and problems and all that. But they did not recognize Gandhi. They took him for another peasant. They were allowed to stay in the garden, but Gandhi was not allowed to draw water from the well. That was the time when untouchability was very much prominent in our society. No one knew the caste of Gandhi, and that was the reason. We all know this is one of the, what you can say, the curses of our society, which is gradually and slowly has come down, but still it is found somewhere. That time it was very much deeply rooted in our society, and that was the reason Gandhi was not permitted to draw water from the well. From there, Gandhi decided to go to Muzaffarpur, which was in the route to Champaran, to get some more information other than Shukla was capable of giving. He sent a telegram to Professor JB Kriplani, who is also known as Acharya Kriplani, one of the famous freedom fighters. He was a professor of Arts College in Muzaffarpur. Gandhiji had met him at Tagore's Santiniketan. When they arrived on 15th April 1917, Acharya Kriplani was waiting at the station with a large body of students. Gandhiji stayed there for 2 days in the home of Professor Malkani, a teacher in a government school. Now it was an extraordinary thing in those days, Gandhi commented, for a government professor to harbor a man like me. Now why did Gandhi say so? Because those were the days when Congress was demanding for home rule and Britishers were against it. And the common man were keeping a distance from the Congress so that they would not get into trouble. But even in that scenario, Professor Malkani, though he was a teacher in a government school, he was a government servant, but then also he became host of Gandhiji, and that's why Gandhiji said that it was an extraordinary thing in those days for a government professor to harbor a man like me, because he was an advocate of home rule, and even though Professor Malkani was a government servant, he did not hesitate to become his host. Now Gandhi's arrival spread very quickly, and people from various places started coming over there. Then lawyers came who were actually looking into the case of the Champaran farmers. They briefed Gandhiji about the whole thing, and they also informed him the fee that they charged. Now Gandhiji chided the lawyer, chided, scolded. What we say it in the Hindi, jhidakna. Huh? He said that he had come to a conclusion that such type of cases should not be brought to the courts at all. Reason? The peasants are so crushed and fear-stricken, and law courts are useless. It takes long time, and that was what was the point of Gandhiji. He felt that the real relief for them is to be free from fear. What should actually be done is to free them from the fear under which they were living. Now, here Gandhiji came to know the ancient arrangement, ancient agreement which was there between the landlords and the sharecroppers. Now, this particular paragraph talks about the arrangement, the agreement. Most of the arable land in Champaran district was divided into large states owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/20 or 15% of their holding with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by long-term contract. Now there must be some question in your mind that it was only 15%, so the farmers were allowed to use 85% of the land for their own purpose. But the problem was with indigo farming, that whichever land was used for indigo farming, that land gradually became infertile, useless, banjar as we say it in Hindi. And so what happened? The fertile, the proportion of fertile land started becoming less, but the proportion of payment of rent in the form of indigo or in form of money, that remained the same. Now the landlords, they came to know about the synthetic indigo being developed by the German, and they felt that this agricultural indigo was not going to be a profitable business. So they played a game. They put up a proposal in front of the farmers that if they pay some compensation, they will be released from this agreement. Now, this sharecropping arrangement was irksome. Irksome means troublesome. Many of them signed willingly and were ready to pay the compensation. But there were some who resisted. They engaged lawyers. Now, what landlords did, they hired musclemen. Now, while all this tension was going on, the information about the synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed, and they felt they had been cheated, and now they wanted their money back. This was the point when Gandhi arrived in Champaran. Now he started trying to get the facts. So first of all, he went to the secretary of the British Landlords Association, but the secretary refused to give him any information, saying that he was an outsider. Next, Gandhiji went to the British official commissioner of Tirhut division. Gandhiji says the commissioner, instead of helping him, started bullying him and asked him to leave Tirhut. But Gandhiji did not leave. Instead, he moved to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers were also with him. At the railway station, Gandhiji was greeted with large number of people. He made one of the house as his headquarters and started his investigation. He came to know that in a nearby village, a farmer had been maltreated. So he decided to go and see. As he was going to that place on an elephant, he was stopped midway, and he was taken back to the town. And there he was given an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. Gandhiji signed the notice, and he said that he would disobey the order and he would not leave Champaran. The result, Gandhiji received a summon to appear in the court the next day. All night Gandhi remained awake. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instruction to the ashram. He wired the full report to the viceroy. Now what happened? The next morning, there was a scene which had never earlier happened in Motihari. The entire Motihari was full of local peasants. They had no idea about Gandhi. They had no idea about what Gandhi had done in South Africa. They had just one idea, that there was a Mahatma, a man who had come to help them, but the authorities were giving him trouble. Now their spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. The officials were confused, powerless. It was Gandhi who helped them to regulate the crowd. He was polite and friendly. And while he was doing all this, he also gave them a proof that the Britishers, who had been wielding their might till now, it could also be challenged by Indians. The government was baffled. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial because they wanted to consult their higher authorities. But Gandhi protested the delay. He wanted a hearing, and so the hearing was conducted. He pleaded guilty. Pleaded guilty means he said that yes, he has broken law. Here he says that he was involved in conflict of duties. Now this is very important. He says that on the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker, on the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. He says that it was a conflict of duties for him. He said, yes, it was his duty to obey law and not to break it. But at the same time, it was also his duty to help the poor farmers. So his argument was that if he would obey law, he would not be able to help the poor farmers. And if he helped the poor farmers, he had to break the law. But then he said that he was ready for any punishment. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. Gandhi refused to pay the bill. The judge released him without the bail. And when finally the court again reconvened, the judge said that he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. Now, many prominent lawyers of Bihar, they had come over there. Most of them were congressmen also, and they all knew about Gandhiji. And some of these famous personalities were Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Majrul Haq. They all discussed with Gandhi what would be done if he was arrested. Gandhiji asked, what would they do if he was sent to prison? So this senior lawyer, they said that they had come there to advise Gandhi. If he went to jail, there will be nobody to advise, and so they will all go back home. And so Gandhi asked, what about the injustice to the poor farmers? Rajendra Prasad writes it somewhere that this made the lawyers think. So they went into another room. And they thought that Gandhi, even though he was a total stranger to the place, was ready to go to jail for these poor peasants. Whereas they, who considered themselves to be the saviors, Masiha of these poor peasants, if they would leave them now, it will be shameful desertion. So they all came. They accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him they were ready to follow him into jail, that they were also ready to go to jail. The battle of Champaran is won, he exclaimed. Gandhiji, when he heard the lawyers that they were also ready to go to jail, he said that battle of Champaran is won. Now see, the fight had just begun, but Gandhiji came to a conclusion that the battle has been won. Why he said so? Because he could see now that the people have realized their responsibilities. They have come to know what their responsibilities are, and that made him say that the battle of Champaran is won. And then Gandhi made the whole plan, divided the group into pairs, and the sequence in which they would be going to jail if one particular person is arrested, then another one will take charge, and so on. Several days later, Gandhi received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that Lieutenant Governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. All the charges against Gandhiji were dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed the first time in modern India. The chief weapon of Gandhiji, civil disobedience. What do we say it in Hindi? Savinay Avagya Andolan. The civil disobedience. It was the first victory of civil disobedience, Gandhiji's chief weapon in the first time in modern India. So here I conclude with the first part of the chapter.